Hey everybody, happy drone day. Welcome back to another episode of Kavinsky's Tutorials. So I thought today I'd look at some of the iOS apps that I might commonly think of when I want to do something a bit drone based. Now this is not a tutorial on how to make drone music or whatever. It's more just looking at some of what I feel are among the most useful apps for doing that. So we got different instrument apps, different FX apps, and a few MIDI processors. So I'm not going to do tutorials on these, but I'll maybe skirt over a few things that I like about each one. And I'll mention also if I've done any videos on these apps before. Some of them will have been spoken videos, some just demos. Now, by the way, Hilda here, I just put up a post on the community section of my YouTube channel earlier today. If you go and check out that post, you can read the details of how to win 2 copies of any Bram Bos app. Winners will be announced tomorrow. Okay, so using AUM today as my host app. My last video used Logic and was a basic walkthrough to kind of get you started in Logic. Back to AUM today as it's such a flexible and brilliant iOS host. Really useful for jams and for just experimenting and setting things up quickly. Watch my almost everything you need to know about AUM video if you want to learn how to set up instruments here, FX, MIDI generators, and so on. I won't cover that in this video. All right, so first thing we got here, I did a video the other day on a new preset pack that came out for Moog Model 15 called Dynamic Drones. But here I'm actually using a pad sound. I think there's just one of the free sounds that come in the app. And I'm running it through Igor Vasiliev's brilliant app, Space Fields. So you can hear what it's like there without Space Fields. Now, Space Fields to me is just really, really a great app for drone and experimental music. Basically, it processes input audio and you can do various modulations on it. Change the pitches, modulate pitches, tons of different stuff. So yeah, I think I did a spoken walkthrough on this. Can't actually remember, it might just have been an audio demo, but it really, really adds a lot. Now, if you just want like immediate results, put it in direct mode and then it'll just act as an effect. In other modes, it can act as a kind of looper. Now, what am I playing this Model 15 with? This great app, which I did a 1-hour walkthrough on, an app by a developer called Sexual, SEQSUAL, or just SQSL. So this app's called Latch. So if you like drones, this is a really great drone sequencer. The downside is, as you can maybe see, it's standalone. But it allows you to record in note patterns and play them back, and it'll play them back a bit randomly and so on. And you've got a lot of control over different things. You can basically have different windows and you can control different instruments with those, or just send them into the same instrument, and change the speed of the different screens, and change a lot of stuff like pitch bend. You can modulate things like that. So if we go here, for example, you can hear I'm doing pitch bend on that. And I could also just automate that. So yeah, did a detailed video on this, so I won't go into it in more detail. Now, next app here, Hilda by Bram Bos. Complex oscillator synth. So I did, half an hour walkthrough, spoken walkthrough on this recently. This has been getting a lot of love. People really, really love this app. Highly recommend it. It can do more than just drone, by the way. Now here I'm using a preset by DMT Cymatics. So he made a pack with a whole bunch of presets that's available on his Gumroad. DMT Cymatics, Cymatics. So this is a great drone synth, and it also has a sequencer built in. Now, here it's going through Bleass Dragonfly. That can be a really fun tool to use on drones. So I didn't do a spoken walkthrough on this, but I did do quite a few audio demos that if you watch, you will basically understand how to use the app. You can use different inputs to influence the tremolo here. Like you can basically use the envelope of the input audio and then multiply that by various factors. Or you can just set things manually using a rate in hertz. Or you can sidechain it to another instrument, so you'll be using its envelope to affect the rate and stuff. And you can also do saturation type stuff in it with this wildness mode. It can get really dirty. It's a very handy app for drones. Now this next one, this is an inter-app audio app. So if you're not familiar, most of the apps that I'm looking at here are AUV3, for example, Hilda, and I think all of the other ones here. Latch, unfortunately, is not AUV3. It's not even inter-app audio, and it doesn't have Ableton Link, by the way, but it does send out MIDI clock. So I don't mind so much because this is really designed for drone and ambient. So I don't really worry about syncing it to drums or anything like that. But I mean, you could, you can set your BPM in this and whatever. I mean, you could work out ways to integrate this with something fixed at a certain BPM, a drum track or whatever, but it would be a bit of hassle. Now, inter-app audio, that basically just means that you can load the app in a host app like Logic Pro or AUM or Cubasis or Loopy Pro or whatever. And then you can add FX onto it, right? Like there's space fields, for example, no problem. You can add as many FX as you want and whatever, but you can only open one instance of the app. So that's the pity with that one. Nevertheless, this is an extremely cool app, extremely cool. So basically here, you load in pictures. Here I'm just using the default one that the app opens with every time you open it, because it's a really nice one. And a lot of the interesting effects that this can do really benefit from images like this that have kind of nice cut, some very dark areas, some white areas, and some areas with nice mixtures. So you can drag things around. You can set up certain ones that will stay in a permanent location. And then you can drag those around. And you can see, by the way, that those are actually panning as well. If I put it over here, it's going more over to the right. We can have touch areas where it'll only stay there as long as we're pressing down. And then it'll start to disappear. And how long it takes to disappear will depend on the release value. You can do all kinds of things like set scales and so on. You can double tap to open and close these different menus and stuff. Now, I'm probably going to do a walkthrough on this at some point soon because I think it's really cool. And it's not an app that many people know about. Now, next one here that I really love using for drones, ApeSoft Accordion. So, of course, I mean, drone music is probably one of the oldest forms of music around. And a lot of traditional music uses drone music. So, I mean, an accordion, I really love the Uilleann pipes that are used in Irish traditional music. And an accordion can be quite a nice substitute for that kind of thing. So here, for example, is an instance of Gauss. Now, I made a very detailed and very popular walkthrough on this app by Bram Bos and Hainbach. And it's still one of my most used apps several years on. Vast majority of the apps that I get or review, I play around with, I'll learn them, whatever, maybe I make a video on them. Most of them I hardly ever touch again. This one is in very regular rotation, absolutely love it. So here what I did was I just used, one accordion instance, and I set up an overdub loop type thing and played in and played around with pitch bend and things like that to just get a kind of bit more complex drone sound. And so then we could add something onto that. So here, unfiltered audio silo. So unfiltered audio, this is basically a granular reverb. They did something really crazy. Okay, they came to iOS from desktop and they put 5 different apps, I think it was 5, all up on public beta. So everybody could use them, give their feedback, whatever. It was absolutely brilliant. They were highly engaged with the community. They were just absolutely brilliant. So that wasn't the crazy bit. The crazy bit was they released all 5 apps on the same day, which I kind of thought was mad. But it did work because they were on an intro price of just $5 each, which for apps of these quality, and like these guys are, big brains, and also have, really professional UI and UX designers working with them. Really, really huge fan of unfiltered audio. So yeah, like all of their apps, if you're into experimental stuff, they're all well worth checking out. So yeah, something like this, a granular reverb, can be really interesting on drones. Okay, next one. Fundamental 2. I made some patches for this using the ring mod feature. And they come now when you buy the app. They're in the app along with the factory presets. Still love this app. There are some things I don't really like about the interface. Some things are a bit fiddly, but it's a very cool app. So I like to add on something like voice picture by tone boosters, which I did a demo of, but not a spoken walkthrough, I think. And this can be just really nice to play around with pitch. And I've got it on a kind of 50-50 mix here, so we're also getting the original signal. And you can see I'm able to play with formants here as well, which is making it a lot more interesting. And we could pan that as well. And of course we could automate that, right? And that could be pretty cool. Probably worth sticking in here true pan. For a bit of panning modulation. Did I believe it was a spoken walkthrough on this recently. Really cool panning app. Now here, Other Desert Cities by Audio Damage. Absolute masterpiece app, it has to be said. Haven't done a video on this, but Jeremy Red, what the hell is the name of his channel again? God. Anyway, he did a great walkthrough on this. Red means recording, yeah. Now here's another app I love to use, Bleass Slow Machine. So you can see I've got, again, a sort of 50-50 dry wet mix. And so this is pitching down the input, and what's really cool is that we can have this sequencer that we can determine exactly how much things get pitched down. Really, really nice app for doing some weird stuff. This is one of the great things about AUM, you know, it's just so easy to move things around. Really a paradise for experimentally oriented musicians. Okay, next we have another app by Bram Bos and Hainbach, Fluss. Although there are a few things I personally don't like about some aspects of the way this app was designed, like this section here, which I talked about in my detailed walkthrough of it. There are other aspects that are absolutely brilliant. And the main thing I like about it is that Bram and Hainbach made, a real effort to make an interface that would actually make use of a touch screen. So that's great. So yeah, this is basically a granular type app. It's got really beautiful, several different types of filters in it. As I mentioned in my video on Hilda, Bram does great filters. So I did a detailed walkthrough on that, so I won't go on much more about it here. If you haven't seen that, I'd definitely recommend it. And so now here, I've got another Bleass app. They are one of my favorite FX developers. Not as crazy about their synths. Although quite like SampleWiz, for example. So yeah, Bleass Phase Mutant. This can be a great one to add on to drones and stuff. I did maybe at least one demo on this, but I didn't do a spoken walkthrough on it. Okay, now next, another Bram app. So Bram likes experimental stuff. And that's why I like a lot of his apps, because that's really my favorite style at the moment anyway. So Mononoke is based on the Lyra 8. And by the way, we can do polyphonic pitch bends, so basically separate pitch bend per note. This is just a great kind of sci-fi soundtrack instrument. Now, Bit Juggler. I did a spoken walkthrough on this. Anything related to degrading audio, playing around with resampling and that kind of stuff. You want to get your stuff to sound like an old, really low quality MP3, you can do that. So yeah, really, really nice what that adds in terms of texture. Now here, the Jaff filter. So a comb filter. Listen how dirty that is, it's great. This app also has a built-in modulation section, which I'm not actually using here, but does have it. It's got a lot of different filter types, and really a lot of them just sound great. Okay, a bit loud, hang on. Eventide mangled verb. Another great reverb type thing, diffusion, Phonolyth Cascade. So same developer as Velvet Machine and so on, Yuri Turov. This preset is one made by a guy called Slush. He's a member of the AudioBus forum. If you don't know it, it's a very useful resource for iOS musicians. So he put this pack on there for everybody to download for free. There's some great presets in there. So go to the AudioBus forum and maybe do a search for Cascade and try to find his post. Slush, good man, great presets. Okay, now next one here. This is a very cool app. So I can't remember actually the developer's name on the App Store, but he's done this app's Sancido, Resonatido. Recently he did one called Bruhaheiser. He's a guy called Alex, but I just can't remember what name he uses on the App Store, and I can't remember his surname. What else has he done? It's like sound frues and stuff like that. A lot of good experimental apps. So, Sancido, I did actually make a sound demo on this. That was something like, a really cool iOS app is about to get even cooler. This was just before it got a new update. I was going to make a walkthrough on it and just never got around to it. But what's really nice about it is it's just very easy to sustain things. And, well, what's really special about it is that we can do, we can get out of the whole 12-tet thing and divide an octave into as many notes as we like. And David Collette, a music theory professor, made a really detailed manual for this, all about working with these different EDOs. A very, very interesting read. So here we can play with the volume and so on. And here we're basically bringing in some sort of tremolo, stuff like that. Here. So you can basically sustain some notes, play around with their tremolo a little bit. You can get some really interesting sounds. Being a sine wave synth, then it's really interesting to add different FX to. I mean, there's tons of stuff you could add to this. Here I added Rumdigari. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation, by Eric Sicht. I'm also not sure if that's the right pronunciation. So he's been making apps for iOS for a long time, and really some of the most unique apps that you'll find, and with just really beautiful interfaces. They tend to be a bit cryptic, but they're always very interesting, very experimental, top quality sound, and just super quirky. Highly recommend all of his stuff. I just wish that he would write detailed manuals. His apps do come with little tooltip things, but frankly, it's not always really enough to really grasp the interconnections between things and so on. Proper spoken manuals would go down great. But yeah, this is fantastic for ambient and experimental stuff. Pixel Hog, makes great presets, but I must say, Pixelhog, the presets you made for this are like really, really loud. Okay. Next one, Geoshred. So last year, I think it was, yeah, they brought out the Nada instruments. So mostly Indian instruments. So here we've got the Nada Svaram. And what's nice about this one for drones is that it can be duophonic. Let me bring the octave down there. So there are lots of instruments in there that can be great for droning. And here I did a walkthrough on this, Magma by K Devices. Really interesting app. Kind of a bit reverby. Can do pitch bend, or not pitch bend, but pitch manipulations. And yeah, it's a pretty interesting app. I won't try and explain it here. Like I say, I did a walkthrough on it. It can like do saturation and stuff like that. Now here I'm using Rosetta particles from the Rosetta Suite. This is, in my view, an essential collection of MIDI apps. I think there's about 10 apps in it. I think it costs about $10 maybe. It's really worth getting. There are sometimes in some of them some features that I really wish had been added. But I'll tell you what, this was one of the first AUV3 MIDI apps that came, MIDI FX apps that came out. I think it might have been the first maybe. And yeah, so this is like a real important piece of iOS music history. So this came out a good while ago, and although these haven't had updates in years, and I mean, haven't really needed them, they've been working perfectly well, doing what they do. But they, I pointed out the other day that they were not working in Logic Pro, and literally Bram just went in, made a few changes to the whole collection, whatever, and literally the next day they were all able to be used in Logic Pro. So brilliant. So here I'm using one of the tools called Rosetta Particles. Now I made 2 videos on the Rosetta Suite. So here I'm feeding this into Decent Sampler. And now again, you know, if you don't know how to like send MIDI into an instrument or whatever in AUM, watch my Almost Everything You Need to Know About AUM tutorial. So Decent Sampler has a lot of nice stuff that can be used for drones and things. I made a demo video of this free woven strings pack that you can find on PianoBook. So the website PianoBook has a lot of Decent Sampler instruments. This is really, really one of the pretty exceptional ones. But there are plenty of things in here that can be good. Like there's this nice Tibetan singing bowl pack. This harmonic flights, this is a cool one. sure there are a lot more. This one I think is a bit on the kind of ambient-y side, if I remember. Some of these distort like crazy when they've got polyphony. Really annoys me. But yeah, now that's sounding kind of messy, I don't know. But yeah, a lot of good stuff in Decent Sampler, despite various issues that people have had with it. Now here, just going really old school, AU Gen X, basically just oscillators, but can be really nice to play with these. Now there's good manual on these, and as you see, my battery is running out also. But one thing I quite like to do is get 2 instances and just layer them on top of each other. And it can be quite nice when you put them around the same frequency and get those nice beating oscillator effects. And you sometimes just hit beautiful sweet spots. And by the way, you can type in even without a keyboard values. Oh look, so many apps need that and don't have it. Isn't this brilliant? Just a little pop-up so you don't get your keyboard popping up and blocking the screen, but you can still enter an exact value. I would love it if AudioThing added this feature to their apps, because some of them could really use them. So yeah, there's a lot that this can do, but I won't go into it. I think you'll find videos online. Now, another great old classic. Oh, I changed my iPad recently, and I haven't obviously restored my Watcha purchase because they were kind enough to provide me with a subscription. It's not technically a subscription, by the way, this app. You buy it and you'll always be able to use it. But if you want the latest features, then you can buy the new version that comes out at the start of every year. This is like it's really a super deep app. And to be honest, I haven't really taken the time to delve into it much. But you don't need to. That's the nice thing about it. You can just, like here I used this category called Only Drones. And it'll just start, generating something. And it's always beautiful, basically. And there's a lot you can do with this. You can go in and manipulate things in all kinds of ways. You can also send MIDI out from this to play other instruments. And you can load OGG files into it. So like they use almost no space whatsoever. So yeah, manipulate samples and things in it. Yeah. And then one app that I forgot to include here. Noises. So I did a spoken walkthrough on this the other day. And this is a really cool app. So again, like I say, I did a walkthrough on this recently. and my iPad is about to die. But basically what you have is a bunch of different banks that were created by Hainbach, and whoops. We can see, information about each bank and stuff here. Each bank contains up to 8 samples, and this dial can be used to crossfade between the samples. And we can do that in interesting ways with this basically LFO section here. That can also modulate filter cutoff and so on. We have different types of filters, blah, blah, blah. So you can make your own banks for this, and I showed in my video how to do that. It's very experimental, beautiful interface. Also has a nice bit crusher built in, by the way. So yeah, go and check out my video on noises. If you're into weird experimental stuff and want an interesting way to use all those samples that you might have lying around. Especially now that, 1 and 2 terabyte iPads are available. Having a big sample library on the iPad is not the issue that it once was. Okay, everyone, so I hope you enjoyed that. And do remember that a lot of these I've done detailed walkthroughs on, so go and check out any that you're interested in. And when I get time, I think I should maybe make a video, make a playlist on like apps that are good for drone or whatever. But, really, I mean, you can use anything for drone as long as you're being creative. And of course, if you're trying to make an actual soundscape out of drones, you're also going to want to add in different little textures and things like that. A little sprinkly, weird little noises and sound effects and whatever here and there. So that's a whole other area that I didn't go into in this video. Okay, so do remember to give the vid a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I often have giveaways when I make demo videos on apps. And my vids are basically a mixture of spoken walkthroughs like this, sometimes extremely deep ones, like my video on Aparillo by Sugar Bytes. It's like an hour long, really, I think, essential viewing for anyone who wants to understand that app without working through the whole pretty detailed manual themselves. And then at other times, I make just more like sound demo videos to give people an idea of what an app is capable of. And those ones tend generally towards the kind of ambient and experimental side. And like I say, I made a video on Logic Pro the other day that I think will be very useful for people who don't know even the basics about how to just get Logic Pro up and running, load instruments, add effects, use the UI and so on. And I will be making more videos on Logic Pro for iPad in the coming weeks and months as well. So yeah, well worth subscribing, I think, to this channel if you haven't, if any of those things are your kind of thing. All right, see you in the next video. Have a good one. Happy Drone Day.